Hello, my name is Mick and you are watching my YouTube channel, Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on X at Movies TV Mad, Instagram, Movies TV Mad X, and on TikTok. Mick isn't perfect because guess what? Mick isn't perfect, but he pretty much just about is. Isn't he, ladies? You know you would cheat on your fellas with me. You know it! Anyway, you know, if you asked me pre-50th anniversary who I would like to organise the 50th anniversary out of Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat, I would absolutely say Russell T Davies. But looking at these two 60th anniversary specials from RTD and The Day of the Doctor, I would change my mind and say Stephen Moffat. Because right now, if you compare The Day of the Doctor, a special movie-length pomp and circumstance anniversary special actually broadcast on the actual anniversary of Doctor Who, you know, compared to Star Beast and Wild Blue Yonder, you know, there's no comparison. And you have to ask the question, why did we ever need 3 specials? I'll answer that question. RTD wanted Doctor Who front and centre. 3 specials means that there's not much of a gap between the giggle and the Christmas special, The Church on Ruby Road. But right now, these two 60th anniversary specials have flattered to deceive. Because I was very excited by Starbeast, because it was a highly entertaining episode. But maybe I was a bit too kind about that episode. For example, I said to you I was happy to suspend disbelief the way Donna kind of cured herself of the Dr. Donna, the human meta-crisis situation. RTD told us if Donna ever remembered the Doctor, her mind would burn and she would die. She didn't. Let's be honest, it was a cheap and lazy solution of the problem. We know that. This is why I never wanted Donna to return. Not because I don't adore Catherine Tate and Donna Noble, because it basically takes away, you know, a brilliant, satisfying, tragic ending. Because as I said before, tragic endings can be just as brilliant and as satisfying as happy endings. So it should never have happened. But RTD needed some garnish because there's not much there if you talk about these two specials. So let's talk about Wild Blue Yonder. I think if we look at Star Beast and Wild Blue Yonder, if they're the first 2 episodes of a brand new season of Doctor Who, you and I are going to be pretty satisfied. But here's the thing, they are not anniversary levels episodes. Now, if we look at them deeper, they're pretty good, serviceable episodes of Doctor Who. Wild Blue Yonder is not a bad episode of Doctor Who. It's dark, it's creepy, it's weird. It's everything that Doctor Who should do now and again. I like the weirdness. I like the creepiness. What doesn't bother me about it, what doesn't offend me, is that Isaac Newton isn't white. Don't care that Donna mentions that the Doctor is gay. Couldn't care less. Couldn't give a shit if the Doctor has 60 men on the TARDIS and has an orgy. Couldn't care less about those things. By now, we know the entertainment industry's ideology. It's the ideology they've always had, but now they're being a bit more blatant about it and triggering a lot of people. But let's look at Wild Blue Yonder. It is an interesting episode. I like the moral of the story that the biggest thing to fear in life is ourselves, as these creatures copy the Doctor and Donna. It works. The actual idea of the episode works. It is brilliant. I love that moment when you think Donna's gonna die. Maybe she should have. Maybe Donna is still gonna die. I'm not convinced that Donna Noble won't die. The problem is with this episode, once it's finished, it doesn't feel that remarkable. It doesn't really stay with you. I'm very, very happy that we got to see Bernard Cribbins one last time. The man's in his 90s and he's delivering one hell of a performance. But let me ask you this question. Do you find it utterly believable that a 90-year-old man, a man in his 90s, has been allowed to sit in a wheelchair outside the TARDIS while the rest of his family are hiding away safely? What member of that family would actually allow that to happen? That is absolutely as ridiculous as the way Donna cured herself of the Dr. Donna. So we've seen some issues and some red flags in the past two episodes within RTD's writing. Now let me be clear. Russell T Davies is a creative hero of mine, and I absolutely love drinking the RTD Kool-Aid, and I always will. I love his mentality as a writer. The man is a genius. But as I keep on saying, these are not anniversary level episodes. The problem RTD has here, he doesn't have the budget for free, high pomp and circumstance anniversary episodes. And here's the truth, that the giggle is the real anniversary episode. The problem is the bubble has burst on the anniversary because the anniversary has been and gone, and people are not feeling that celebratory about Doctor Who anymore. Because most people, if they're honest, would say they feel quite underwhelmed about these first two episodes, would say they were really, really good crafted episodes in a regular series, but in terms of an anniversary, they simply don't work. They're not celebratory Doctor Who episodes, and we know that. And as I keep on saying, it is not about bringing back old doctors or old characters or having a multi-doctor story. You can't do a multi-doctor story every anniversary, and that's perfectly fine, although I always wanted to see a Tennant. I always wanted to see a Tennant and an Eccleston, Doctor story, because they were the first two Doctors. Probably my favourite two Doctors of the revival. Now, we know the circumstances around Christopher Eccleston and why he won't go anywhere near a Russell T Davies, Julie Gardner and Phil Collinson produced Doctor Who episode. But if you want me to remind you what happened, because Eccleston has admitted there were big problems, he fell out with all three of them, and he was even blacklisted by the BBC. Why do you think that is? Well, I'll explain. Series 1 of Doctor Who was stressful. They had taken on a big, big thing to do. And nobody on that production was used to doing something on the level of a Hollywood television production. It became very stressful, people became overworked, and Eccleston, as a union man, was trying to defend that cast and that crew. They got fed up of him. Basically they cancelled his contract because he did have an agreement to do a second series. That's why Billie Piper was still in series 2, because she had an agreement for 2 series, but once that contract was over, she was getting out of Dodge because she didn't like how Christopher Eccleston was treated. Now, she was happy to return to Doctor Who because she hadn't been treated the way Eccleston was, and that's why you'll probably never see Eccleston again. In live-action Doctor Who, he has started doing Big Finish, but who knows what could happen in the giggle. The miracle could happen and Eccleston could return. Anything's possible. Will we see previous Doctors in the giggle? This video's about last night's episode, Wild Blue Yonder. I absolutely approve of the fact that we went back and started, talking about the timeless children, because it's the elephant in the room. You have to expand on it, or it's just a hot take from a child. It is a hot take from a child that hates a lot of classic era Doctor Who fans and did it to upset them. He also wanted to rewrite history and have more kind of inclusive castings as the Doctor. But you can't rewrite history, everyone. What happened in Doctor Who's past happened. What you do is you create a better present and a better future. But today's creatives in today's industry don't understand that. So I liked what they did in referencing back to the Flux and to the Timeless Child. And I thought Tennant, performed the hell out of it. It really, really worked for me, and I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed what it does to the Doctor, because this is a huge thing. Half of the universe was destroyed. He thought he was a Time Lord from Gallifrey, but really his origin story is a mystery, or their origin story is a mystery. It's a very interesting premise, but here's the thing. Chris Chibnall never meant for it to be an interesting premise. Again, I'm not upset by that being referenced, because here's the thing. It's there, it's canon, it has to be dealt with. You can't ignore it. But I do have a prediction for you, and I've probably mentioned it quite a few times, that I believe by the end of the giggle that the Doctor Who universe will be rebooted, and that's why RTD is calling the new series Series 1. Because he's not doing that for no reason. He is up to something here. Because there's been a lot of tokenism thus far in these first two specials. The representation of Rose, a trans character. Tokenism. Where was she in yesterday's episode? They could have easily killed off Donna in that first episode or the last episode, The Giggle, and said that Yasmin Finney is the new full-time companion if RTD was really serious about representing and including a trans character and a trans actor. But here's the truth. They're not really interested in doing that. I already mentioned this in yesterday's video. And so, when you look at the way the Wild Blue Yonder episode was made, it was made brilliantly. They had to use two versions of Tate and Tennant. Some of the stuff they did with the long hands, my hands are too long, my arms are too long, was very, very creepy. It was a very, very creepy, interesting episode of Doctor Who. But the question has to be asked, was it anniversary level? No, it wasn't. It was something you would expect to see in an actual series of Doctor Who. And this is my problem with it. Going back to the Sir Isaac Newton, is it the Sir Isaac J. Newton at the beginning of the episode? That was supposed to be funny. It just didn't work for me. I understand what RTD was going for there, but it really didn't do much for me. In the way the Doctor just assumes, as soon as he sees him under a tree in that year, well, it must be Isaac Newton, right? I mean, it couldn't possibly be someone else, so that was a bit ridiculous as well. But I'm nitpicking now. What was my enjoyment level of this episode? Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you're watching it and you're watching it and you're waiting for something to happen, because what they did was keep this episode a huge secret, because they wanted to pretend that they were keeping secrets while denying it at the same time, because they weren't hiding anything from this episode. We already knew they were going to mention the Flux. That had leaked online already. So we already knew that. That wasn't a surprise. It was just the way they were going to handle it. As I say, it's important, it's referenced, because it's canon, it's happened, right? But whether it's going to remain canon at the end of the giggle, we'll have to wait and see. RTD saying he won't unwrite the Timeless Children. No, he's going to do something that unwrites the past 60 years. Maybe keeping some of the stuff that he brought into Doctor Who in his original revival, maybe. But I think the Doctor is rebooting the universe. We've seen it done so many times in comics, and it can certainly be done in Doctor Who. Even the cliffhanger ending seemed a bit cheap, because they don't want to use the famous Hollywood actor in the other episodes, because he's really expensive. It's clear they can only afford one episode where they're spending a lot of money on it. To me, it seems like they spent all their money on the TARDIS interior, which is stunning, and the intro, which again is really stunning. But Russell T Davies has a saying. It's like, you know, that episode when the Doctor and Margaret Slevine are having dinner and he calls it a cheap episode. And when he says cheap, he says it's not bad. And he's right. That's an excellent episode. And this was also a cheap episode of Doctor Who. Basically, it's a cleverly crafted filler. Now, would we call Starbeast a filler as well? Well, you can't call it a filler. But these first two episodes are basically just wasting a lot of time. Because the main event is the giggle. Because here's the newsflash you already know. There should have been one episode of Doctor Who in these specials. The one that we're going to see next week. The one that should be very exciting, very climactic, and gives us the introduction of Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor. So I'm still hyped for that episode. I'm expecting RTD to throw everything at the giggle because he has to. Because that's the episode that you're going to decide whether Doctor Who is worth watching. Now, I don't have the ratings yet for last night's episode, but I expect them to be slightly lower than last week's, because last week's was basically a season premiere. This is the second episode. There's always a drop. But how big a drop will there be? And you would expect with a regeneration episode next week, or we think the Doctor's going to regenerate. We don't know how Ncuti will appear because we don't know how the Doctor's old face has come back in the first place. I expect the ratings to go up because it's a regeneration episode. I'd be very shocked if that episode doesn't get 6.5 million to 7 million live viewers. It needs to, otherwise the interesting Doctor Who isn't as high as it once was. Here's the thing. Russell T Davies crafted a revival that uplifted Doctor Who as a mainstream event. But what happened after he left, that was damaged. And Chibnall really damaged that with a lot of the things he did. It was a very underwhelming era of Doctor Who. And RTD can keep on talking about that wonderful female Doctor, but let's be honest, unless you were already a fan of hers, you ain't suddenly going to be drinking that Kool-Aid, although normally I do drink the RTD Kool-Aid. Really, Wild Blue Yonder is typical of current day entertainment where it flatters to deceive. You see, the whole idea of bringing Tennant and Tate back was to suck you in that something very exciting was going to happen. But as I said earlier, I could have lived without Donna returning because I never wanted her tragic ending to be changed. And I knew, as I said earlier, that's exactly what's going to happen. Unless she still dies. Unless she's slowly dying. Because if that gobbing of the energy stands, it's the most ridiculous way to cure a problem. It's going to be very, very interesting what happens to Donna. As I said, they did tease that she died at the end of Wild Blue Yonder. And for a moment, I thought maybe he's actually going to kill her off. And to be honest with you, as much as I love Catherine and I love Donna, I would have been fine with her dying. Half the fandom would be, half the fandom wouldn't be. Because a lot of people these days just want happy, happy stories. But sometimes it's brilliant to have a tragic ending. Donna's ending in The Journey's End is a brilliant way. Because that's how Donna's story should have always ended. She was always a tragic character. She was angry at the world and the Doctor made her better. She always missed everything. So wiping her mind was poetic. But the way they brought her back and undid all of that created the fantastic character that RTD and Catherine Tate orchestrated together. And that's very, very sad. But again, Catherine Tate was outstanding with David Tennant. There's nothing wrong with the performances of this episode. In fact, the performances kind of garnish away the problems with Wild Blue Yonder. That really, Wild Blue Yonder, as quiet and as creepy and as unnerving as it is at times and succeeds in doing what it wants to do isn't what anyone wants to see from an anniversary special. And if basically you just made, like Moffat did, one anniversary special instead of 3, and you broadcast it on the actual anniversary of Doctor Who, everyone's happy. We're happy to wait for the Christmas special, the Church on Ruby Rose. Let me say that again. The Church on Ruby Road, not the Church on Ruby Rose. I've got Rose on the mind. Will Billy Piper turn up in the giggle? Will previous Doctors turn up in the giggle? You know, this episode is a big mystery. It's either going to be some of the best Doctor Who we've ever seen, or it's going to be very, very underwhelming. Right now, after watching Wild Blue Yonder and Star Beast, I'm very concerned about the future of Doctor Who under RTD, as much as I love him. Because he said a very interesting thing when he was promoting The Waters of Mars. He said he was starting to run out of Doctor Who ideas. He was running out of gas. He said he would not have come back unless he could have done something different with Doctor Who. Here's the thing. Wild Blue Yonder may be different, but it isn't different enough, and it certainly isn't what the Doctor ordered, no pun intended, for an anniversary special. But I didn't hate it. I just didn't love it. It's just there. Look, as interesting as that episode is, it doesn't do anything. You know, it's good that it references the Timeless Children. I like that. It's important. Whether you like that story or not, whether it upsets you or you're its ardent defender, it's there at the moment, unless RTD does something in the giggle. And as I say, I wouldn't put it past him. I will make a prediction, another prediction for the giggle. You're going to see how ruthless Russell T Davies is. Because something big has to happen in the giggle now. Because the Doctor Who brand has been damaged. And Russell has to do something to tell us that Doctor Who is back. It's going to be exciting and vibrant, and this Doctor and this new companion are going to be worth following. That's going to be very interesting if we get a promo for Christmas Day at the end of the giggle. I've noticed there's been no promos, you know, during the credits like we used to in the original RTD era. That's interesting, but I will say that those promos used to be very, very spoilery, so we're probably not going to see them again, which is a shame, because I used to love those little next time bits at the end of the credits. I thought they were brilliant. They really got you in the mood for the next episode. I would give Wild Blue Yonder a 6 out of 10. I think it's executed and directed, and it is a very tricky episode to make at the end of the day when you've got doubles of Tennant and Tate. And those performances by those actors would have come with a lot of challenges. And I understand that the production did a brilliant job. This is not about the people who worked hard on the episode. I think it's always important when we're a little bit critical of something to show gratitude to the people who worked so hard to make that episode. But ultimately, this was RTD's plan for the anniversary. Garnish, flatter to deceive, give us 2 middling, okay, not so bad but not brilliant episodes, then the giggle should be huge. Otherwise, it's RTD having a giggle on us. And that's not what he wants us to think. We don't want to think that as fans, but it's very, very important now that Doctor Who delivers. Because as much as I've enjoyed these 2 episodes, and I did take a great deal away from these episodes, and they really did have some good things in them, no question about it, you do have to look at it. And again, as I say, there's been a lot of tokenism here. For example, the disabled unit character. As I said about Yasmin Finney's character, right? Rose. Rose Noble and the disabled character could have actually been the Doctor's full-time companions if he really wanted to be inclusive to disabled people and the trans community. But no, it's just a little bit of tokenism here and there. You know, the disabled character will be given, the TARDIS has now got a ramp or something, right? So she'll turn up now and again and join them on adventures, but she won't be full-time. But she could have been if they wanted her to, and so could of Rose Noble. So we will see Rose Noble again because RTD says that he wants to work with her again. And that's good, because I think Yaz delivered a really, really good performance. Seeing a trans character played by a trans actor does not trigger me. The Doctor maybe being gay doesn't trigger me. So Isaac Newton being not white doesn't trigger me. Because, did I say trigger? It doesn't trigger me. These are not things that upset me anymore, because I know it's part of the world we live in today. I mean, I don't agree. I mean, I don't know what colour Sir Isaac Newton was, right? I'm assuming he was definitely white, right? Okay? So I don't understand the sense of culture swapping that character, or what it says, or why you're bothering to do that. Maybe he was brown. Who the fuck cares? Maybe the Doctor likes men as much as women. I don't give a fuck. That's not important to me. But it's important to Russell T Davies, and it's important to this community of people in the entertainment industry, and there you have it. But at the end of the day, Wild Blue Yonder is a middling, forgettable episode. There is no question about that. And anniversary episodes shouldn't be middling, and they shouldn't be forgettable. The thing is, if you want to make 3 episodes, you know, in a Doctor Who anniversary year, they've got to be chapterized. They've got to be a bit like the Flux, if you like. I thought Chibnall did a good job with the Flux. I mean, I don't agree with everything he did. I can criticise him here or there, but he did this brilliant saga that continued from episode to episode. It was an event, and people tuned in. In fact, so far, Chibnall did a better job with his centennial episode, The Power of the Doctor, than RTD has done with these 2 60th anniversary episodes. It could go down in the end. Ironies amongst ironies, that Chibnall gave us a better 60th anniversary episode than RTD has. But of course, it's all about the giggle now, boys and girls. That's what it's about. Everything is riding on this episode. It has to be epic. It has to be compelling. This could be the last time we ever see David Tennant as the Doctor. Who knows? Catherine Tate's Donna Noble may actually be killed off. It could be the last hurrah for her as well. So it's all very, very huge. But thus far, you know, I haven't seen anniversary level. And I mean, comment down below. What do you like? What do you think an anniversary episode should be? Would you like to see multi-Doctor stories? Would you have liked to have seen the Master? Maybe we still will see the Master. Maybe, you know, that would have been a good thing as well, wouldn't it? Why couldn't we have a multi-Master story? You know what? That would be quite kind of fun. A multi-Master story and a multi-Doctor story at the same time. That would have been really brilliant. We could have had Michelle Gomez, you know, Sacha Dhawan, John Sim. We could have had, you know, David Tennant, Matt Smith and Capaldi versus those Masters. That would have been fucking amazing. But that's the thing. It's not an event. It's not felt like an event. Now, the giggle, to be fair, feels like an event because the villain is played by a very famous Hollywood actor, a very, very good actor. And I'm very, very excited to see what he does. It's going, hopefully, I'm not going to say it's going to be great, but I'm hoping it's great and I'm hoping it's better than what we've had thus far. That's the episode that really has to pop. But yes, Bernard Cribbins, brilliant, great to see him. But as I keep on saying, we already had Wilfred Mott's ending. You know, that moment when he cries at the end of Time Part 2 is a very famous gif on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, right? We had our farewells for Donna. We had our farewells for Wilf. We didn't need this stuff again. Because in the end, you over-egg the pudding and you underwhelm the audience. Because once you do something so, defining for Donna Noble at the end of Journey's End, but then you go, nah, we're just going to retcon that and she's coming back. It doesn't mean anything. It's meaningless. Keep on bringing people back is a problem, whether they're dead or alive. So at this moment in time, I would say both these anniversary episodes have been good rather than magnificent. But it was always about the giggle. Let's see what the future of Doctor Who holds. It's a big moment next week, boys and girls. Will Russell T Davies bring Doctor Who back to the very top with record-breaking ratings, or will Russell T Davies not only be the man who brought back Doctor Who to a mainstream audience, but that also took it away?